Clint Eastwood thought it was just another quiet evening, until a frightened little boy clutching a broken toy car leaned in close and whispered something that made his entire body go still. Within seconds, Clint's fingers were dialing 911, his instincts screaming that something was very, very wrong. Across the room, a man in a pristine suit caught his gaze. His expression shifted, first surprise, then something far more dangerous. What had started as a simple meal was quickly turning into something else, something deadly, and Clint was right in the middle of it. He hadn't planned to stop that night. He had just wrapped up a charity event in Los Angeles, the kind he liked to keep low profile, writing checks, shaking hands, listening to people's stories. It was the kind of thing that reminded him why he avoided the spotlight. Normally, he would have gone straight home, or maybe to one of those discreet little restaurants where no one would bother him, but instead, he did something unusual. He pulled into a McDonald's off a busy avenue. Why not? It wasn't about the food, the greasy smell, or the garish yellow lights. It was about the feeling, watching people come and go, some in a rush, some just wasting time, kids playing in the corner while their parents stared at their phones. It was normal, and for a man who had spent most of his life being anything but normal, that was something worth enjoying. His order was simple: burger, fries, black coffee, nothing fancy. He picked a seat by the window, silenced his phone, and let himself fade into the background. That's when he saw the boy. 5, maybe 6 years old. Messy brown hair, an old gray t-shirt a size too big. He wasn't eating, just sitting there, clutching his broken toy car like it was the most important thing in the world. His eyes darted around, not like a child distracted by the lights and noise, but like someone searching for an exit. Next to him sat a man, well-dressed, perfectly groomed, a watch that screamed money. He didn't acknowledge the boy, barely moved except to check his phone, but every time the kid shifted, the man's eyes flicked toward him, sharp, calculating, a silent warning wrapped in perfect control. Clint felt it before he understood it. He had spent too many years reading people, knowing at a glance who walked into a room with good intentions and who didn't. And this man, this was the kind that set off alarms before you even knew why. Then the boy moved. He slid off his chair, slowly, hesitantly, like he expected to be stopped. His grip tightened around the broken car as he took one step, then another. Clint stayed still, watching. The boy's gaze never wavered, locked on Clint, as if he had already decided. He walked straight to him. By the time he reached the table, Clint had already set his burger down. The boy hesitated for a fraction of a second, then leaned in so close that only Clint could hear. And then he whispered something that made Clint freeze. Not the kind of freeze that came with surprise, the kind that came with knowing. Right here, right now, everything had just changed. His hand went to his pocket. He pulled out his phone. 3 digits. Call. 911, what's your emergency? Before he could answer, the man in the suit moved. He rose slowly, deliberately, the kind of man who never rushed because he never had to. He smoothed his jacket, adjusted his cuffs, then locked eyes with Clint. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. This wasn't over, not even close. The phone hadn't even finished ringing when the man took his first step. Slow. Measured. The kind of walk that belonged to men who didn't lose their temper because they never needed to. Clint kept the phone near his ear, tracking the man's every move. Then the voice came through. 911, what's your emergency? Clint didn't answer. Not yet. The man's lips curled. Not quite a smile, but close enough to pretend. Sorry about this, the man said, voice smooth. Sam has a habit of wandering off. The boy's grip on his broken toy tightened. He took half a step back, just enough to put Clint's chair between himself and the man. That told Clint everything he needed to know. The man extended his hand toward the boy, gentle, coaxing, but his eyes never left Clint. Come on, buddy, he said, all warmth, no force. Let's not bother the nice man. Clint finally spoke into the phone. I'm at the McDonald's on Sunset, he said, voice even. Got a situation with a child, need officers here, now. The man's expression didn't change, but his fingers twitched. A chess player reacting to an unexpected move. "Sir," the operator said, "can you confirm the nature of the situation? Is the child in immediate danger?" The man leaned in just slightly, voice lowering so only Clint could hear. "I don't know what you think you're doing," he murmured, that thin smile never fading, "but you don't want to be involved in this." Clint's fingers curled around his coffee cup. Not tightly, just enough to remind himself it was there. "Sir, do you need immediate assistance?" Clint kept his eyes locked on the man. Then, slow and deliberate, he said, "Yes." The man exhaled sharply, a quiet laugh, a shake of the head, like Clint was some old fool who didn't understand what game he had just walked into. Then, for the first time, he turned his attention to the boy. "Let go," he said. Less warmth now, less patience. Sam shrank back another step. Clint shifted slightly in his seat, blocking the space between them. "I think he wants to stay," Clint said. A beat passed. Then another. The man's fingers flexed at his sides, but the smile remained perfectly in place. "You've got the wrong idea," he said. "Maybe," Clint took a sip of his coffee. "Maybe not." The restaurant was quiet in that strange, charged way, like the air just before a storm. Murmured voices, orders being called, fryers sizzling, but underneath it, something else. People noticing, glances flicking their way. The man turned his head just a fraction, calculating, measuring how much attention was too much. And just like that, the game had changed. The manager behind the counter was watching now, so was a waitress near the soda machine. The man in the suit adjusted his cuffs, then took a step back. "I'll be outside," he said. "Don't take too long." Then he turned, walking toward the exit with the kind of slow, measured confidence that said he wasn't worried. Not yet. Clint didn't watch him leave. He already knew how this would go. Sam sat frozen, staring at the door as if expecting it to pull him through. Clint set his coffee down and looked at him. "You hungry?" Sam hesitated, then, after a beat, gave a slow, uncertain nod. Clint gestured toward the tray. "Eat." The boy climbed into the booth, hands still locked around the broken toy. He picked up a fry, held it for a moment like he wasn't sure what to do with it, then took a small bite. Clint reached for his coffee again. Outside, through the window, the man in the suit stood by a sleek black sedan, phone pressed to his ear. His face was unreadable, but Clint had been around long enough to recognize the look of a man calling in backup. The coffee had gone cold, but Clint drank it anyway. This wasn't over. The fries were disappearing, one by one. But Sam wasn't eating like a hungry kid. He was eating like someone trying to stay occupied, as if stopping for even a second would bring something bad down on him. Clint had seen that before. Outside, the man was still on the phone, one hand in his pocket, posture just a little too controlled to be casual. He wasn't making a call to complain about service. This was different. Clint took another sip, watching without watching. Then the man turned slightly, just enough for Clint to catch the shape of his lips, forming two words. "Handle it." Clint set his cup down. The front door swung open. Two men walked in, not in suits, not like the first guy. These two were different, bigger, built for a job that required size and weight. Their clothes were casual, jeans, dark jackets, the kind of men who blended into the background until it was too late to notice them. One veered toward the counter, pretending to look at the menu. The other moved into the seating area, scanning the room like he was searching for a place to sit. Neither of them looked at Clint, which meant they had already seen him. Sam had gone still again. One fry halfway to his mouth, eyes locked on the man outside, his fingers clenched around the broken toy. Clint let out a slow breath, then slid his tray aside. "We're leaving," he said. Sam blinked up at him, confused. Clint stood, reached for his jacket. "Come on." Sam hesitated, then nodded. Clint stepped out of the booth, moving with steady ease, no rush, no hesitation. The last thing he needed was to trigger a reaction. The guy near the counter turned his head slightly, the other adjusted his jacket. Clint placed a hand on Sam's shoulder and walked toward the door. They were almost there when the man at the counter stepped into their path, moving like it was an accident. "Excuse me," he said, voice polite, too practiced. You dropped something." Clint didn't slow, neither did Sam. The man stepped closer. "Hey, hold up." That's when Clint finally stopped. He turned his head just enough to meet the man's eyes. Not aggressive, not defensive, just looking. The man hesitated. His first mistake. Clint took a step forward, not around him, but through the space. The man instinctively shifted back. Only half a step, but it was enough. Clint pushed open the door with one hand, guiding Sam outside with the other. The man in the suit was still by the sedan, still on the phone. He saw them step out, and though his expression remained neutral, Clint caught the flicker in his eyes. Something he didn't like. Clint didn't stop. He didn't turn toward his truck, either. That would be too easy, too predictable. Instead, he walked toward the side of the building. Behind him, the door swung open again. Footsteps followed. Not running. Not yet. Clint reached the corner, turned it, pulled Sam along, then stopped. A second later, one of the men rounded the corner after them. Clint moved first. A single step forward, not an attack, just pressure, enough to make the guy react. He flinched. He hadn't expected Clint to stop, hadn't expected him to hold his ground. Clint locked eyes with him. "I don't know what you think you're doing," he said, voice quiet but firm, "but it stops now." The man didn't move. Then, from the parking lot, tires screeched. Clint turned just in time to see the black sedan peeling out, moving too fast, too reckless. The man in the suit was gone. But he wasn't running. He was repositioning. The guy in jeans, too young, too green, stood stiffly in front of Clint, caught between his job and realizing just how deep he was in. Clint tilted his head. "You sticking around?" The man's jaw tightened. Then, just as fast, he turned on his heel and strode back toward the restaurant, disappearing through the side entrance. A retreat. But not a surrender. Not yet. Clint looked down at Sam. "Move." They cut through the back alley, slipping between dumpsters behind the McDonald's and the dry cleaner next door. The air was thick with fryer grease and detergent, better than the alternative, standing out in the open. Sam stayed close, still clutching the broken toy, as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. Clint kept his pace steady, not too fast, not too slow. Running made people look, walking made people remember. They needed neither. At the edge of the alley, Clint stopped, checked the street. The sedan was gone. But that didn't mean the problem was... Then he saw a gray SUV, parked 3 cars down, tinted windows sealed tight, no plates, engine running, watching, wait. Clint exhaled through his nose. Amateurs. He turned to Sam. "You ever ride in the back of a pickup?" Sam blinked. "What?" Clint didn't repeat himself. He just moved. They cut across the lot, weaving between parked cars, slipping past bumpers and headlights. The SUV didn't move. Not yet. Clint spotted what he needed. A battered Ford pickup, tailgate busted, paint peeling. Good enough. He grabbed the handle, lifted Sam up, and set him inside the truck bed. "Lie flat. Don't move." Sam obeyed, curling into the corner, disappearing into the shadows. Clint turned back. The SUV's engine revved. Showtime. He walked toward the driver's side of the truck. Slow, casual, like he belonged there, like he wasn't watching the SUV roll forward. 30 feet. 20. 15. The window rolled down an inch. Clint could feel the eyes on him now, measuring, calculating. Then in one motion, he slid into the truck, slammed the door, and turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. The SUV moved. Clint threw the truck into reverse. The SUV lunged forward, a mistake. Clint punched the gas, jerking the wheel left. The truck fishtailed, tires shrieking against the asphalt, swinging just as the SUV cut across the lot. Too late. Too slow. Now they were the ones playing catch-up. Clint shifted into drive and floored it. The truck jolted forward, bouncing over a speed bump, rattling down the road. The SUV swerved behind them. Sam stayed low, exactly like Clint told him. The SUV closed in, headlights flashing in the mirror. Faster, harder. They weren't backing off, they were pushing. Clint read the road ahead. A light. Red. Cross traffic moving fast. Too fast. Good. He waited. The SUV roared closer. Close enough for Clint to see the shadowed figure behind the wheel. Whoever they weren't hesitating anymore. Perfect. At the last second, Clint yanked the wheel right. The truck skidded sideways, tires shrieking as it cut into a narrow alley just before the intersection. The SUV wasn't as lucky. Brakes screamed, horns blared. Then, the crash. Metal slammed into metal, glass shattered. Clint didn't look back. He didn't need to. He just kept driving. The truck rumbled through the alley, dust and trash swirling in its wake. Clint kept his foot steady on the gas. Not too fast. Not too slow. Speed got you noticed. Hesitation got you caught. He checked the rear view. The SUV was gone. Bought them time. Not much, but enough. Still, Sam hadn't made a sound. Clint slid open the rear window. "You still with me?" A small voice. "Yeah, good. Stay low." The alley spit them onto a side street, lined with old shops and bars glowing with neon lights that hadn't been switched off in decades. The kind of place where nobody asked questions unless you gave them a reason to. Clint eased the truck into a normal speed, blended in, no sudden moves, no attention. The game wasn't about running, it was about disappearing. But he wasn't the only one who knew that. Half a block ahead, parked just a little too perfectly along the curb, was another car. Not the sedan, not the SUV. Something different. But the feeling was the same. Eyes were on him. Clint needed a new plan. He kept driving, casual, relaxed. Rolled past the car. Didn't look. Didn't flinch. But he felt it. The weight of being watched. A test. He reached the next intersection. Kept going. The car pulled out. Clint exhaled through his nose. Fine. He turned onto a main road, 4 lanes leading downtown, early evening traffic thick enough to work in his favor. The car followed. They weren't making a move, not yet. Clint tapped his fingers against the wheel, thinking. He needed to get off the street, out of sight. Then he had it. Veering left, he cut through a gas station lot, took an exit onto another road, doubling back smoothly. Not fast, just clean, like a man who knew exactly where he was going. The car hesitated, their mistake. Ahead, a parking garage. One of those old concrete monsters that swallowed cars whole. Clint pulled in, drove up one level, then another, then killed the engine. Silence. He glanced through the rear window. Out, he said. Sam scrambled through, climbing into the cab, curling up on the seat. He looked up, waiting for Clint's next move. Clint was already scanning. Exits, elevators, stairwells. Checked his watch. 3 minutes. That's how long they had before the car found them. 2 options, wait or walk straight into the fire. Clint cracked his knuckles. No contest. He opened the door. Let's go. They moved quick but not rushed. Slipping down a stairwell, hitting street level. The garage emptied into an alley. Empty. Except for a row of dumpsters. A locked service door. Clint checked the area. No movement. Yet. Sam tugged his sleeve. Where are we going? Someplace quiet. Will they find us? Clint didn't answer. Not because he didn't know, but because they both already did. He led Sam down the alley, boots crunching against loose gravel. The world outside hummed. Traffic rolling, people talking, the city breathing. But in here, between the dumpsters and the dark back doors of places that never locked, it was quiet. Too quiet. They weren't safe yet. Clint had been in situations like this before. You don't outrun men like this. You outthink them. They were patient, disciplined, they wouldn't make mistakes. Which meant Clint couldn't either. He stopped at the alley's end, checked the street, half empty, a couple of pedestrians, a homeless man pushing a cart, and 50 yards away, a car, not moving, just waiting. Whoever was inside that car wasn't looking for a chase. They were waiting for an opportunity, a clean one. Clint glanced down at Sam. The kid was still clutching that broken toy car like it was the only solid thing left in the world. His breathing was steady, but his eyes weren't. They kept darting to the shadows, to every movement, every sound that might signal something bad coming his way. He'd been living like this for a while. Clint adjusted his jacket. He needed to buy them time, shift the balance of control, because right now, they were nothing more than rats in a maze. Then, up ahead, he saw it. A police station. 4 blocks away, a straight shot, if he didn't mind taking a risk. Clint exhaled. Risk was just another word for living. He looked at Sam. "You up for a walk?" Sam hesitated. "Where?" Clint tilted his head toward the street. "That way." Sam swallowed, but he nodded. That was enough. They stepped out, not fast, not slow, just 2 people walking. The car didn't move. Clint kept his gaze ahead, but his attention was locked behind him. He counted his steps. Half a block. A full block. Still no movement. That's what worried him. Then, just as they reached the second block, a door opened, not from the car, from the building beside them. A man stepped out. No suit this time, no expensive watch, just a guy in a regular jacket, in a regular city. Except his eyes gave him away. They always did. Clint slowed, the man slowed, the city kept moving. Clint's fingers flexed at his sides. Not a fight, not yet. The man smiled, easy. "Clint Eastwood," he said. "Didn't take you for the hero type." Clint didn't smile back. The man's eyes flicked to Sam, then back. "Hand him over." Clint shook his head. "Try again." The man sighed, like this was just another inconvenience, some errand he didn't really want to run. Then he reached into his jacket. Clint moved, not toward the man, toward Sam. He grabbed the kid and threw him into the crosswalk. "Run." Sam stumbled, caught himself, looked back. "Go." And then Sam was moving. The man cursed, lunging forward, reaching. Clint caught his wrist, twisted, a crunch, a scream. The man dropped. Clint stepped over him, already moving. The car door swung open. Someone else getting out. Too late. Sam was across the street now. And stepping out of the police station, coffee in hand, was a uniformed officer. Sam ran straight to him. The officer blinked, startled, then looked up, saw Clint, saw the man on the ground, saw the car. Then the sirens came, and just like that, the game was over. Hours later, Clint sat in the waiting room of the station, drinking terrible coffee. The air smelled like cheap carpet and stale paperwork. Sam was in the other room, giving his statement. The man in the suit? He wouldn't be bothering anyone again. The others? Well, there were always more of them. But that wasn't Clint's problem. Not anymore. He took another sip of coffee. Then Sam walked out. Tired, shaken, but standing. Clint nodded. "You did good, kid." Sam hesitated. Then slowly he held out the broken toy car. Clint looked at it. Then reached out and took it, no words, none needed. Outside, the city kept breathing. The station still buzzed with movement when Clint finally stepped out. The night air had cooled, but the city never really quieted. Sirens in the distance. The low hum of traffic. Laughter from people who had no idea what had just played out in the last few hours. Sam was inside. Safe. Protected. And the men who had spent the day trying to take him? Done. Arrested. But if Clint had read this right, they were just the tip of something bigger. That wasn't his concern anymore. His job was finished. At least, that's what he told himself. But then an officer stepped outside. "We found her." Clint didn't hesitate. Laura was alive. Bruised. Weak, but alive. They had found her in a motel on the outskirts of the city, locked in, unconscious, but stable. She was rushed to the hospital, and when Clint arrived, Sam was already there. Sitting in a chair too big for him, broken toy car still in his hands. When the doctors let them in, Sam ran straight to her. She wasn't fully awake yet, but her hand twitched at his touch. Clint stayed in the doorway, watching. This wasn't his moment. Not yet. Laura's eyes fluttered open, taking in the hospital room, the machines. Then finally the small boy gripping her hand like he'd never let go again. Tears welled, but she just held him tighter. No words. Didn't need them, Clint exhaled, nodded to himself. It was over. Weeks later, Clint was back in Los Angeles, walking past newsstands that barely covered the case. The world kept spinning. It always did. Then the call came. The department was holding a small ceremony. Something for Sam, a recognition for his courage. Clint almost didn't go, but then he did. The event was small, nothing flashy, a few officers, some local reporters, and Sam, standing in the middle of it all, dressed in a suit jacket 2 sizes too big. When they handed him the certificate, he looked around, then he spotted Clint and ran straight to him. He had something in his hand, folded, creased at the edges. He held it out. A drawing, 2 figures. One tall, one small, holding hands. Above them scrawled in uneven, childish handwriting, "My hero." Clint looked at it, then at Sam. And for the first time in a long time, he smiled. He ruffled the kid's hair. "The real hero," Clint said, "is the one who asks for help when they need it." Sam grinned, gripping his drawing tight. The cameras clicked, the reporters murmured, but none of it mattered. Clint had already turned, hands in his pockets, heading for the exit. The city was still breathing, and so was the kid. That was enough. Thank you for sticking with us through this intense story. Clint Eastwood's quick instincts and unwavering courage remind us that sometimes doing the right thing means stepping into danger to protect those who can't protect themselves. This story is a powerful lesson about staying aware, trusting your gut, and standing up for the vulnerable, even when the odds are stacked against you. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, comment your thoughts below, and let us know what would you have done in Clint's place. And of course, subscribe for more gripping, real-life inspired stories coming your way. See you in the next one.